Thank you very much. Do we have a clicker? We do. Good. Okay, so hopefully... So I know I'm the last person before beer. I'm sorry. I'll get through this as quick and as painlessly as possible. Let's see if I can get my slides up. Oh, no, maybe not. Fingers crossed. How are we doing? Has it been a good first day? Yeah? Oh, here we go. So audience-led decision-making. So I'm not going to talk about DevOps. You know, if you want to talk about kind of like keeping your servers alive, that's a really interesting topic. It's fascinating. There are some great companies out there like Xamarin who basically offer services around that. That's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the power of your player and how we put it at the heart of it. I don't think community management and building audiences is around moderation. It's an important part, but it's not what I think a community is about. I think that there's a massive part to play around managing and responding to problem management, but I don't think that's really what the heart of it is. And like I say, I don't think it's about network operations. I think community is about the sensory system of your game. Your audience are your eyes, your ears, your heart, your soul, the core of what it is, the reason why you make a game. I think that's really fundamentally critical, is realizing we shouldn't be making, as professionals, games that we like just because we like them. We should be making it for an audience. We should also be making sure whoever is responsible for making sure the community are happy, engaged, etc., are the defenders of the player, and they're at the heart of our development process. Any designer that is not actively clinging on to every word the community management are talking about is crazy, I would argue. You know, the heart and soul of the game, data is phenomenally powerful, but data does not give you intent. The only way we can get insight is if we pay attention to not only what players say they're going to do and say that they like, but combining that with what they do like. The combination of the data and the emotion is where we can drive things forward. And having a champion, whether the champion is the designer themselves, or the champion is the community manager, or whatever, they need to be at the heart and soul of the company. I actually think they're more important than almost anyone else. Maybe the guy who's doing the best CPI deal is quite important too, but I actually think that he doesn't make a game that works. The guy that makes the game work is the guy who we've talked to. So that means, if I'm right, if you are willing to give me that, I want to make the contention that we should be putting a community at the heart of decision making. That does not mean that we do what players always want. Because players don't always know what they want. It's the classic joke that, I don't know whether Henry Ford actually said it, but they always said about Henry Ford, you know, what kind of, if you ask somebody what kind of vehicle they want, they would have asked for a faster horse. So, I mean, it's not, okay, it wasn't that bad a joke. Maybe I told it badly. You know, knowing that you can have all this as long as it's in black and all this kind of stuff, these sound like really sad and terrible things. Actually, knowing the difference between what feels like good when you don't know what the possibility is and what is going to be good for your game is a difficult conundrum to balance. We have to make some hard choices. We have to understand what players want. We have to understand what makes money. We have to understand what's relevant for the game, what works for the game, and what's cost effective. So knowing this balancing act, finding the sweet spot, that's easy, isn't it? We just map these things together and it's just going to come pouring out. It's not quite like that. Because cohort 1 want this thing over here, and cohort 3 want the one over there, and they never all line up, do they? Anyone who's done community-based games probably knows exactly what I'm talking about here. You know, the sword of power is the most important thing to a particular group of community because it's going to mean that their faction is going to win over some other faction in some particular scenario, whatever it might be. I'm making something up, obviously. Or is the hat of wonder the most important thing because this other group want to do it? So cohorts are messy. And obviously I'm using the term cohort because I find data the most wonderful thing on the planet. But it's about understanding who the sub-communities are. What's in it for them? And actually, often it's down to player types, as in the kind of engagement that they're looking for. People want different things from games. People have a different mode of use depending on the devices they're using, but equally they have a different mindset depending on what mood they're in. I don't know about you, but I will go home and I will play certain types of games when I'm in one mood. And if you try to do data analysis on me, you'll say I'm a hardcore gamer, I'm interested in first-person shooters, I'm a solo player, blah, blah, blah. But then another time I'll go back and I'll be playing something that's a big sandbox world and puzzle solving and it's got no violence in it. And so who am I as a player? So even individuals are complicated. And feedback isn't always helpful. What players say they want is not what the players necessarily actually want. It's definitely not what makes money. And it definitely isn't what makes the game move forward. So our job is to basically look at and analysing where through triaging the information that we get through the eyes and ears of the audience and the community, how we can then find real functional ways to drive the game forward and to do that in the most efficient way possible. Sometimes it's better to have a simple event than to build a new feature. What's going to make people look forward? What's going to make them fear missing out? How are they going to build up their social capacity, their social capital value? How are they going to give themselves permission to not do the washing up? Because actually, often that's the real conundrum. There are things in their real lives, even if it's watching Netflix, because I've got to finish Titans. I like Titans. My son thinks I'm terrible for liking Titans. But there's something that we've got to do. Why play this game? So this is my antidote to that, which is really to try and turn it into a process. And so what I try to do, and again, sorry for the small font, what I'm trying to do here is I'm looking for audience input. And so I'm looking for that. It could be technical, that could be community, it could be gameplay, it could be a number of things. It might be social interaction, it might be way they communicate. And I'm basically trying to analyse what that is. I used to be an advocate, and I'm not sure if I'm against it now. I think I'm actually still in favour of it. The idea of having public-facing roadmaps. It's a difficult one. I kind of like them. Because if I can get votes on what they are, I can order them. But if I go to too much detail, I'm in a problem because I get to where we were with PlayStation Home, where we hadn't got a trophy room. PlayStation Home was considered to be a failure. And the two reasons it was a failure is because we didn't ever release a trophy room, and we didn't ever release the ability to show video on a TV that you could walk down the stairs with. These were things that were promised. They're still stupid, but they were genuinely promised at the launch in the 2007 launch that Phil Harrison gave. And I've never lived that down because I couldn't get those things in. I think one of the content companies actually did produce a television set at one point. Victory. But I was sat in the Sony board meeting when Shu basically said, we're not going to mandate trophies in PlayStation Home. So it's an interesting thing where you have this, it's not just about what the players want, it's also about what you want to do. So if we listen to what players want and we triage that by looking at what that means, but that triaging is about business reasons, it's about the technical, it's about the community, the gameplay elements, but it's also about the politics. It's also about what's cost effective and also what's satisfying. Can we build a roadmap out of this? Now, sometimes that's going to be, there is an issue that's come in. Let's say someone is in a server and it's fallen over. Okay, I need to know there's somebody in my community who's going to act as first line support, who's going to triage that, who's going to give the initial response and know that that response is going to be safely given so that the audience isn't get left thinking, this company doesn't care about what I think. That's actually really important. That's why I include it in my decision-making process. But we already know what those answers are, because we're going to get a lot of information from players we've heard before. Now, we should still keep note of it, we should still track it, analyse it, but the bottom line is, we've got an FAQ, go look at the FAQ, but I'm not going to just tell you to go look at an FAQ, because that's not very friendly, it's not very authentic. Here is a nice FAQ, hope that was good. I mean, all the good stuff that we should do. But then having a secondary response, when the response to that is, no, that's not what I meant. This is what I meant, and it doesn't fit into a nice, neat package. I want somebody else who's not first line, who's not talking directly to the player, to be able to step back and say, do I need to go get whoever made this thing to go fix it? It could be internal, it could be external. Do I need to escalate it to management? Because that's something that has to happen sometimes. But do I have to get them to escalate it today? Or will it wait till the next work day or the next stand-up? You need somebody who's got the ability and strength of character to be able to say, yes, I know this person's angry with us right now, but it isn't something we can deal with right now. And we don't need to deal with it right now because we've already agreed this is how we're going to deal with this thing. So far, we've got a lot of thinking about taking information from an audience, structuring it, triaging it, making sure we've got the right level of response. And in fact, frankly, you've got to know how your team should respond to those comments and questions and issues as they're raised. And we apply data to it. So we take all of that information, we pay attention to it, we analyse it, we work out what the implications of that are, and that means that we can then prioritise it. If something does not fall off when you get to the first line of response because it's solved, if something does not fall off at the second line of response because we can't escalate it appropriately, it's more important or it's more problematic, maybe even it's basically gameplay damaging. You know, we've had situations where games go down, I'm sure we've all been there. Who gets woken up at 3 a.m? It was always me. Because it was my team that was running the community, it was my team that was running the whatever. You know, I've got to pick it up, I've got to pick up the call. Unfortunately, it didn't happen very often, but it still happens. But then, once you prioritise, it's about making sure that you, having understood it, checked the data, prioritised it, you can then allocate to the right resource. So is the right solution to fix the bug? Is the right solution to give a refund to somebody? Is the right solution to give them a 3 letters in front of their username that makes them feel very special? Finding out the right way of allocating the right resources, whether it's art, whether it's code, whether it's design, whether it's network, or even if it's just community. And then finally, getting on with the production. So thinking about the way you take information as it comes in from your audience, how you make sure that you communicate back to those people and take it all the way through your management process. And you shouldn't, I think, features basically come out of that process. There may be features you want to do, but unless you've worked out that there's appetite for it, you're very, very dangerous territory. You've got to be very careful about how you test that. So what I'm trying to get across here is, in order to really be successful, I feel that it's about leading your community, not following them. And that means you are listening to them. You are paying attention, but you're not just paying attention to what they say, you're paying attention to what they do. You're using data, you're using market insight, you're looking at what competitive analysis you can do. You're taking a holistic view of the place that your game lives. And there's just one more thing. I mean, this idea that you occupy a space. One thing I love about Columbo, we all know Columbo, TV show? Okay. Columbo was a detective show, okay? So have a bumbling idiot like me walking around trying to solve crimes. I don't solve crimes, but if I were to solve crimes, I'd be Columbo. So bumbling idiot wanders around, throws the controller away, somehow. And what he does is he creates a space that you're going to be paying attention to that's meaningless to the plot. And you've got to work out where in that space is the stuff that really matters. And you've got to basically pay attention long enough so that by the time he says just one more thing, you've solved it. What on earth has this got to do with audience-led, community? And I'll explain. Because we need to create the space for players to explore the possibilities for us. And then we need to pay attention to them. So by the time we're ready to say just one more thing and release the next piece of content, we already know what they're thinking. We beat them to the punch, and we deliver value because we're being authentic, because we're paying attention, because we're applying not just the emotional response that we should be giving them because they're our fans, for goodness sake, but also that we're listening to how we deliver the best possible experience by using analytics, data, and market potential outside of our game. If we do this, if we communicate this well, we end up looking at our game as a cycle, an ongoing series of loops where we can test and analyze. So we start with user acquisition. We then try to build up player engagement. This is all part of the player lifecycle. If you've heard me talk before, I probably bored you to tears over the player lifecycle. But if we think about when people start discovering a game, how they learn to play the game, but not just the sort of technical skills of playing, but where the game fits into their daily routine. That's what I mean by player engagement. The ability to predictably, regularly deliver content at the right cadence for the audience that delivers a sense of anticipation, brings people back. And also, if we get it right, makes them want to buy things, which is nice. But also, if we get it right, creates anticipation over the events that we're going to create, and also creates a buzz in the community. And that is where we will get authentic virality, because when we start seeing people who genuinely love our game, talking to their friends about the things that they genuinely love, and seeing evidence of that, because every month there's some other freak out about some new game mode or some new challenge or competition or whatever it is. You know the game is alive, you know that somebody you trust likes and loves it, and the anticipation and desire of it. So why aren't we incorporating our community more in the way we start acquiring users? Why aren't we starting to use the events and promotions that we're making for the community as ways of informing our customer acquisition? The amount of value there is in getting your creative right when you're trying to acquire new users is incredible. And if you can feed that in to the activities you've learned by listening to players, seeing what they do, building the right pieces, and then communicating that to a wider audience, that becomes a positive cycle. So that's basically it. I ran through it quickly on the basis that I knew it was the last call, but also because I knew we ran over a little bit earlier. Obviously happy to take questions. Just so you know, I'm happy to be doing a webinar on February the 4th. It's going to be about looking at the lessons from hyper-casual, but also games as a service, and trying to see where there's common ground between the two and what we can do as developers to basically become more efficient and more effective. So that's that, but obviously, you know, I'm fascinated by what live ops can do. Done well, done predictably. Let's all discover the Columbo in ourselves and look for that just one more thing. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Oscar. I thought that was fascinating. We are in theory at time, but because it's the last talk of the day, I'm personally happy to do as many questions as we like, as Oscar likes, and until we get kicked out. So
I have to go and do a Petra Kucha in about 2 or 3 minutes, so I have to watch myself. But I will take questions anyway. If people want to grab me, I have cards, so you can come and talk to me anytime.
Okay, cool.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.